Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I'm helping you get out of your head so that you can truly have it all. Let's do it. Before I introduce today's episode, I wanted to share an exciting announcement. Sarah and I have officially launched the Balanced Mama Moments audio series. Now, this is something we've been working on for months over at Sarah's website, sarahbivens.com. We wanted to create something for moms who were feeling imbalanced, overstressed, and uninspired, because that was a lot of the feedback we were receiving from moms we were talking to on our other podcast. So we got our heads together, we tinkered, and we created this amazing series of audio tracks specifically for moms, new moms, seasoned moms, and soon-to-be moms, to help them create more balanced moments in their lives. So again, it's the Balanced Mama Moments audio series. You can find out more over at Sarah's website, sarahbivens.com, and please go check it out. If you are a mom, I really think you'll dig it. If you know a mom, send them to it. They're really going to enjoy it. Now, today's episode is a special one because I have a guest with me on the podcast, and I haven't done that in a very long time. Months and months ago, I decided that I no longer wanted to do interviews on my show, and I stuck with that for a long time, yet I would constantly get interview requests. I would have people reaching out to me saying, hey, I think I'd be a great guest for your show, and I would just say, no, thank you. But Michelle reached out, and I don't necessarily know what it was. I think it was just a mix of her style and her energy and just the message that she sent, and it really hit me. It resonated with me. So I invited her to come on the show, and Michelle and I have this awesome conversation all about beauty. We talk about what beauty is. We talk about being able to see, appreciate, own, and nurture the beauty within yourself, along with seeing the beauty in other people and in life itself. This is a cool conversation because we really get into some self-love. We bring it down. Michelle is very much into physics and looking at our physical bodies and connecting that with the metaphysical. So we talk about some kind of up there topics, but we really ground them, and we give you some actionable, concrete action steps and advice and tips. So it's a great conversation. Michelle hosts this really awesome show called The Cultured Podcast, and we talk about that a little bit in our conversation. So with no further ado, take a listen to my conversation with Michelle Khouri. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me on the Having It All podcast. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
How do I pronounce your last name?
Khouri.
Khouri.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know if the H was in there.
It's
Khouri.
Syrian, so it's Khouri in Arabic, but Khouri for those of us who don't speak Arabic.
That's awesome. So before we hit record, you were talking about you grew up in Colombia, mm-hmm. and you have a Syrian last name. Mm-hmm. Explain that.
So we're not recording yet?
We're recording.
Oh, we are? Okay, cool. So I'm multicultural in the sense that my grandparents are all from different places. So my grandpa was Syrian. That's on my dad's side. So my dad was Argentinian, but his parents were Syrian and Argentinian and Spanish, basically. His mom was of Spanish descent. And then on my mom's side, she was born in Colombia, but her parents are Guatemalan and Colombian. So all my grandparents are from 4 different countries.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was born in the U.S. as a first-generation American.
Wow.
Yeah, so I actually have an episode of the Cultured Podcast, which is the podcast I host, that I talk about identity and art as an expression of culture, because I've experienced this really interesting existence where no one really knows how to peg me, and so they just kind of put me into their own bucket.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't tell me what my identity is.
Yeah. Yeah. People will try.
Oh, they will try.
Yes.
If you confuse anyone, they will try to label you instantly.
Oh man, I got that my whole life growing up.
Really? Why did you get it?
Being biracial.
Yeah.
White mom, black dad.
Oh, so you know it.
Yeah, and kids didn't know what I mean. I remember, so like I grew up in Southern California, and lived there for about 9 years.
Yeah.
And I had a great mix of like multicultural people that just were part of my crew. As a little 6-year-old kid, right? There was like all these different nationalities represented, and I think because of that, it just happened to be what it was like there. I didn't get any questions about my identity. Fast forward, moved to Atlanta, the suburbs of Atlanta. And I remember like 5th grade, it was probably just a few weeks coming into school. Someone asked, "What are you?" And it was the first time I've ever been presented with that question.
Yeah.
And it totally threw me because I didn't know what they were talking about.
Wow.
Like, what are you? And I started to become aware of that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So I get it. And since then, some folks have pegged me as all different types of ethnicities.
Well, that's so funny. My roommate is Native American, and so she is darker skinned, sort of. She calls herself brown, and so I don't get the question of what are you, because I'm light skinned, and I never realized that is a privilege until And I grew up in Miami, so there's every color of Latino. Yeah. But we're mainly Latinos over there. And so the question of what are you is mostly like, which country are you from in South America, right? Or in the Caribbean. And so my roommate said the same thing, where she moved to Atlanta and people were like, what are you?
Yeah.
And she said the same thing you just
said. It's different.
Said.
It's interesting.
Yeah. It's fascinating because, I think that not always, that question doesn't always come charged with bad intent, because I think people become curious when someone doesn't look like them. And that is natural.
Yeah.
And on top of it, they become very intrigued, like, what mix brought you together? And I think it's also a sign that, like, there's a whole new generation of us walking around. Like, we are of the same generation. And I think that we're really the first generation that brings the world together within ourselves.
Yeah, that's a cool way to put it.
Yeah, I love it. I love not belonging to anything. Sometimes that presents some identity struggles, especially if you're not as stubborn as I am, where it's like, well, I'm just me. Yeah. So to some people, it can be a curveball in their existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is it's cool that we kind of naturally got on this topic because when we first were connected, you host the Cultured podcast, and tell us a little bit real quick about your podcast.
Ooh, I love it. So I just gave birth to it recently. And it is a podcast that explores what I say, it digs at the roots of art, theater, design, literature, global customs, travel, basically anything that can be included under the umbrella of culture, and it basically arts and culture. And what I do is I have conversations with creators of different types, and we explore topics surrounding culture in a way that's very approachable and very digestible for people who are not necessarily into arts and culture. And so what I love about it is our hashtag is Culture for All. And that's kind of the movement I've created with the Cultured podcast, because I want people who may have felt intimidated by, potential elitism or snobbery that very frequently comes out of arts and culture circles. I want them to feel drawn to the podcast and feel like they're exploring with me. I've spent my life dedicated to arts and culture, and it's one of those things, I'm a moth to a flame with it. I call myself a culture vulture because I circle all things cultural. And so while I've spent my life in it, I don't believe in ego, and I don't believe in elitism, and I don't believe, I mean, for me, art, I was just on another podcast and she asked me, Sarah was like, do you think that art is only for the elite? And I was like, no, what? cavemen were painting on caves.
Yeah.
They didn't have master's degrees. Like, they barely knew how to start a fire. Like, painting, art is the expression of the human spirit. And it's, to me, one of the most natural parts of our humanity. And so I want everyone to feel like they can explore and uncover new ideas of beauty, new ideas of expression in the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked you, because I was just going to continue talking, but no.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I'm glad, so people can tune in and check it out.
Yeah, please do.
And so when we were first connected and we were kind of talking about what we would actually talk about on this show,
yeah,
I was like, all right, Michelle's got this awesome podcast about culture. I'm talking about whatever the hell I talk about on, Having It All. Like, where are we going to find a nice, like, merging of something that we can both bring something great to the table. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned it a couple of seconds ago. You said beauty.
Yes.
And that kind of came out, like that rose to the top mm-hmm. of what we could both throw some insights, some experiences, some breakdowns, some breakthroughs around this idea of beauty and how it relates to self-love and what it looks like to see the beauty in yourself, as well as see and recognize the beauty in others. And so I am curious, what has been part of your story, your formidable experiences around beauty in terms of how you see it within yourself and the lens of beauty through which you see the world?
Yeah. It's a great question, and beauty has been a difficult journey for me. It's been a natural and difficult journey, and it's because the different levels of beauty that exist in the world around us, the external beauty versus the internal beauty, are so easily influenced by our society and by the people who surround us and the messages that surround us, that it can really throw us for a loop. So I was born big. I was a huge baby. There's this picture that I grew up looking at, and I never realized until I got older. My mom is this petite Colombian woman, and she in the picture, she's carrying me as like a 1-year-old in, one of those things that you strap on.
Yeah,
and it's like
in the front.
And I'm like taking up her whole body. And I looked at it recently and I was like, Mom, I was enormous. How did you eat? What? Kind of gives you more respect for the woman. Anyway, was born big, and especially for my cultures, that created me. I'm tall, so is my sister, but I've always been overweight, and I actually do have an immune disorder, autoimmune disorder called celiac disease that has made me throughout my life gain uncontrollable weight with the consumption of gluten. Well, I didn't know that. Nobody knew that. And so I was, even though I was a little overweight as a child, I was severely bullied, and I was severely picked on and physically harassed and emotionally tormented. And, in my family, it was kind of the messages that were passed around were like, if you lose weight, people will like you. And that's so detrimental. Like, so growing up, it was natural for me to see the beauty around me. And so I've always had an interesting relationship with beauty because I'm just an enthusiastic human, and I'm a realistic optimist, but I'm ever optimistic. And so when I look around me, I'm like, holy moly, the sun is beautiful. Wow, the sky looks great. Do you see that oak tree? Like, wow, I really like your red shirt. Like, I see beauty around me, but when it came to the beauty within me, I didn't see it. And it took me 25 years to start seeing the beauty within me. And so that was an interesting journey for me.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, those stories, those ideas, other people's concepts of beauty, beliefs around beauty.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy for us to latch on to them and make them our own.
Oh my gosh. You adopt them. It's like, it's interesting because I have this amazing friend who does Reiki on me, and she is so, so wonderful. And, the other day she told me, so what? Those are other people's words, like why are those your thoughts if those are other people's words? And it was so powerful to think of it in those terms, because it's up to you to adopt or not adopt other people's thoughts and words. And
man, it's hard.
Oh, it is hard.
Like it's a simple concept,
yeah,
right? Like, oh, someone tells you something like
right.
that, that's gorgeous, or that's ugly, or that's wrong, that's right. It's such an easy concept to say, you can choose whether or not you want to believe that. It's like, oh, of course. But man, like if your family is handing their concept of beauty and acceptance and value, if they're handing that to you, especially when you're young, but even when you're older, even when you're at our age right now, like it can be insanely challenging to not simply say, okay, you must be right. If you're telling me that, you must be correct. And then you just grab that and you add it to the baggage and the stresses and all of the stuff that you carry around. I mean, simple in concept, but can be so challenging.
And that's why you have to practice it. Yeah. It's one of those things like anything else. To get good at anything, you have to practice.
Yeah.
And in the same way, to destroy the mental structures that have been built and that you've allowed to be built around your own concepts of whatever, in this case, beauty, you have to practice. And every single day you have to look in the mirror. We talked about this, like what are some applicable things that you can do? And my journey with beauty has included, at a certain point I had to say, I cannot hate myself anymore. I can't. That's stupid because in my deepest heart, I actually love myself. I know that there's good there. And when you don't see the beauty within you, when you don't see the love within you, you don't accept love from others. And there have been plenty of people in my life looking back who were like, you're beautiful. I love you. You're beautiful. I love you. And I was like, no, I'm good. No, you're wrong.
Yeah, there must be something wrong. You're lying to me.
You're lying.
And then that creates a story that people are lying, that anybody who tells you you're beautiful or that you are worthy or that you are valued, it just, you say, no, they must be lying.
Exactly. And that's sad because, we hear a lot of these messages now about like everyone is beautiful. Every shape and size is beautiful. And I think a lot of us dismiss that very easily because it sounds cheesy or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's true. You are the beauty that you see in yourself. The world around you is but a reflection of what you perceive. Period. And so if you see beauty within you and if you are able to embrace the light and the love that you are made of, well, the world around you will feel love-filled and light,
Yeah. And, I've struggled with concepts like that, not in understanding them on their face, but feeling them in my heart. And what I mean by that is, you say the world is a reflection of the beauty you see within yourself. Right? And in some of the circles that I'm in, some of the conversations we have, we talk about how people are our mirrors and they mirror back to us. And I'm like, okay, I'm a smart guy, right? I have a master's degree. I've read a book or two. I should be able to understand these concepts, but this shit just goes over my head. So I want us to go back and talk about this idea of the world is going to reflect the beauty you see within yourself, because I know for folks like me, you might hear stuff like that and you might read stuff like that and you nod and you say, I get it. But if you don't actually, something shifts when you actually incept the message behind that. Because I think it's a powerful message. Totally. And you touched upon it earlier. You touched upon this idea that, you have this lens through which you see the world. And if you're coming from a place of love, of abundance, of joy, of peace, then that lens, you start to see the world and the things that appear in the world as more loving, as more joyful, more peaceful. And I think that's just, it's important for folks like me, for the dummies out there like me, who just, that stuff, like, I get it, but don't really get it.
You're not a dummy, okay? And it's funny because we all... It's funny, the what you just said, you were like, I have an MBA, I've read a book or two, but it's like any other part of your brain. If you don't exercise that part, then you're not going to get it. So it takes exercise. And that's why, and it starts, when I read books about it, and I love reading about quantum physics because the idea of superstring theory really resonates with the idea of the mirror. So I like finding the connections between science and, like, even if it's theory-based science, like physics or quantum physics, and then connecting it to theories surrounding spirituality.
That's pretty cool.
It's all really, spirituality is founded in mostly quantum physics or metaphysics. So I love reading Deepak Chopra, followed by like The Elegant Universe, which is all about superstring theory. And then like Darwin, and then connecting the dots. And so all of that to say, I use that muscle in my brain a lot because I want to know what it practically means to have a mirror around you. So to answer your question, or to sort of describe how I see it, to bring it down to a more like practical level, when somebody is being mean to you, okay? So let's say, let's take my experience in elementary school. When one of those young boys was kicking me or punching me, or one of the young girls was taunting me, I didn't realize that what was happening is they were seeing something in me that brought to them feelings of inadequacy or whatever their shadow was. It was reminding them of that. Yeah. And when we don't know how to be self-aware, when we don't see ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually, when we aren't communicating with ourselves, that's what we do. We project onto people. We see our worst in other people, and so we chastise them and we persecute them, and really nasty things come up. And that's what the mirror is. It's both good and bad. Some of the people we love the most in this world are usually a reflection of some of the things we love most about ourselves. And so if you really think about, okay, let's take your wife. You and your wife are these beautiful mirrors where you face each other. You see the best in yourselves in that person. What's cool about a partnership, though, is that you also see the best in somebody that you wish to be as well. Mm-hmm. And so they just by being around you, encourage you to explore that, encourage you to flex those muscles to be that person that you hope to be, that you see in them. Yeah. Yeah. Am I making sense?
You are. And this stuff can make sense, right? Like we can bring this down because, I liked how you mentioned the self-awareness. Because that, to me, it's like, okay, again, another concept that we read about and we hear about, you want to become more self-aware and yada, yada. But what does that actually mean? And so what you're talking about are very concrete ways for you to rep and practice that self-awareness, being at peace with yourself, looking for in areas in your life where you might be experiencing some disempowering emotions towards someone else, some jealousy, some frustration, some whatever it is, and then saying, okay, I'm feeling that towards this person. I'm projecting it because there's something going on with me. Yeah. So I think that is a great way to practice this and to really see that mirror in your life, because I think we can all conjure up pretty darn quick an example of jealousy.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean, we kind of live in the time of envy, don't we?
There we go.
Like, where there's literally like full-blown institutions built on envy. And it's called Instagram.
Yes, absolutely.
It's called Facebook.
Yeah.
And we've all, because of those tools, which I love and have tremendous benefits, because nothing in this world is pure evil or pure good.
You mentioned it's a tool.
Right. It's a tool.
Yeah.
And so you choose how to use it. Yep. You choose how to perceive the world through it. And I have struggled immensely personally with comparing myself to others. It's something that I still work on. And, but talking about self-awareness is really important because it's scary. And so I think for those of us who have had difficult childhoods or difficult lives or difficult journeys, whatever it is, sometimes it's the scariest thing you can do in your life is to
Absolutely.
really look at yourself and to really to feel the hurt that's there and to feel where the little wounds are still gushing.
Yeah.
And to recognize them. And so what happens is a lot of people, our natural instincts are to shut off self-awareness because we think if we ignore it, then it's not there. But how that manifests then is in everything from complaining about everything in your life. Victimizing yourself is a really big one.
Yeah.
Victim mentality can be the worst thing for a person. And to say that everything around you is happening to you rather than by you is immensely destructive. It's also disempowering, like you said. I mean, it takes all the control away from you. It takes all the power away. Yeah.
Takes it away. And
exactly.
Or continue.
No, and it manifests in things like that, but also, and equally as bad, is it manifests as projecting ill will onto others and projecting those wounds onto others.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've caught myself in the act of projection where I'm like, let's take an example of if I'm fighting with someone and I'm like, God, they're being so annoying and they're yelling at me. And then I realize that I'm the one who's yelling or that I'm the one who's projecting these feelings that I'm perceiving them to be doing. I'm putting it onto them.
Yeah.
And so they're responding in the same way. And to take that accountability and to be able to see yourself allows you to take that accountability and to then say, oh man, I was wrong. And then to apologize to the person.
Yeah.
To own up to it.
Which is an episode I published a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah. And I want to go back to the idea of to the person who, like me, for many years, I would say, I'm 31 years old. Mm-hmm. I'd say for 26, 27 years, I was the person who buried stuff. Mm-hmm. I did not want to look at myself, things in my past, things that I had done, things that I had experienced, because they were too difficult. Like you said, this self-awareness, this journey of really getting to know yourself can be one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging thing you get into. Okay. And I think the folks who are walking down that path right now understand that.
Oh yeah.
And so I want to share with, for the people who've been like me, who just bury that stuff, the principle that really has helped me to not do that. And it's a principle of everything is energy. Mm-hmm. And it can go right back to physics.
Yep.
Right? Everything is energy in different states, right?
Yep.
So the guilt, the shame, the regret, all of that stuff is energy. Mm-hmm. And when it's not expressed or when it's not transmuted, when you can't shift that somewhere else, it has to go somewhere.
Yes.
And you talked about the manifestation. Mm-hmm. It goes somewhere within you and it manifests itself in many ways when you don't deal with that energy.
Yep.
So it can manifest itself in physical ways in your body. I like to call them dis-eases. Mm-hmm. It can manifest in, like you were talking about, projecting different things or being mean towards people or whatever it is, but it's energy.
Yep.
And what is in physics? Energy can't be created nor destroyed. Mm-hmm. So it's got to go somewhere.
Yes.
So that's why, I think if you're kind of like me and you need some of these concepts to be grounded, if you're a science person, you can understand that everything is energy. And so if you're feeling this disempowering energy, this dark energy, this heavy energy within you, you got to do something with it because it's not going anywhere.
100%. And to take it a little bit further, because I love this, and a concept in spirituality are the chakras, right? In the body. Mm-hmm. And those are basically hubs of different energies within you.
Yeah.
And whether you believe it or not, the idea of energy remaining in your body is, you are energy, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, it's different vibrations, and this is the superstring theory, which is the leading theory of energy of everything that exists in physics, and has been the leading theory of everything for hundreds of years now. For Einstein basically helped develop it, and the idea is that these little tiny 2D strings are the absolute smallest version of everything in the entire known universe. and that they vibrate differently, and they come together in different forms based on how they vibrate and what their frequencies are. And so it's funny because we use terms now like good vibes only.
Yes. Yes.
And that's literally a nod to superstring theory because we're talking about vibrations, right? Yeah. And so if you nail it down, you're like, okay, we're talking about good vibrations. What does that mean? Why do we in popular culture say good vibrations only? It's because there's something inside of all of us that picks up on the vibrations of others.
Yeah.
And whether we are attuned to that or not, all we know is that I just met Matthew Bivens and he was nice. And now I'm sitting in a room and I feel pleasant about it. Great. I might want to see Matthew Bivens again because I felt pleasant. That's because your vibrations were good. I was picking up on them. We're all like antennas.
Absolutely.
Now, here's where self-awareness comes in, is you've got a whole ton of vibrations and you own them, right? You have the living form that houses the vibrations, that is the vibration. And for us to shut off our antennas to ourselves is really destructive. And so this is why people talk about meditation so much nowadays. And this is why I meditate frequently, is because meditation allows you a space of stillness to pick up on those frequencies and pick up on how those frequencies are manifesting within your own body and to listen to your body. And you would be surprised, I mean, truly shocked, actually, how many times I've come out of a meditation sobbing because, you know, the mirror got held up and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was doing that.
That energy.
Oh my God.
That energy is transmuted and it starts coming out in that way. Absolutely.
And you have to release it, right? Yeah. And so, you know, for me, I even think that my celiac disease is a manifestation of me carrying stress in my solar plexus. And it happens to be, and that's a chakra term.
Yeah.
And it happens to be something that I battle with every day is my solar plexus. So that's something I work on through my meditations with Reiki and things like that, because that's the lifestyle that I lead, right?
Yeah.
But you might be somebody who goes to church or the temple, whatever. And that becomes your space for meditation and feeling at one with a certain kind of vibration. Whatever it is, even if it's at the top of a mountain after a hike or in the middle of the woods, which is super healing too. Find space to attune yourself to your vibrations.
Yep.
And to understand how you are manifesting how you feel or the things in your past. And then begin the journey of releasing those things and of healing from the wounds and understanding that the wounds don't exist, right? They don't. Yeah. They're within our minds and we just hang on to them. Sometimes we become way too comfortable with not seeing the beauty.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And that is when victim mentality and complaining all the time and negativity, living within this like bubble of negativity occurs.
Yeah.
And no one likes that.
No, and going back to the meditation, that's been a habit that I have attempted to, that's been a practice that I've attempted to shift and make it a habit so many times.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think I meditate probably 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Is where I'm at, 2 to 3 times a week.
Fantastic.
And, you know, they might be a 5-minute meditation. Maybe it's a little bit long. But for those who are listening who might be like me, who want to get into meditation but don't know how, I use this awesome app. And, you know, this app is not a sponsor of the show or anything. I just love it. It's called Headspace. And they have a free 10-day, it's like 10-minute meditations. You do 10 minutes a day for 10 days. And it was awesome in helping me to create a new understanding and context around meditation, but then also to help me get that practice.
Become regular, yeah.
Yeah. So go check it out. It's, you know, Headspace. I don't know the website, probably headspace.com, but it's just for 10 minutes, for 10 days, like it's pretty cool. And it can help you with meditation, which, you know, as Michelle, as you're saying, is just this beautiful and simple, incredibly simple way for you to tune your antenna to yourself, to your vibration, for you to become more connected with source, whoever or whatever source is for you. And
or self, you know, if you don't believe in source, you got to believe in self.
Yes, exactly. Tune into whatever that is, whatever the S is for you. And meditation is just a very simple, especially for the people who get caught up in the having to do, the doing versus the being.
Right.
Meditating is all about being, right? You must stop doing in order to meditate. Stop checking your phone, stop being on, social media, stop running around. It's simply calming and being. And so I love meditation as sort of the, number one thing from this conversation of creating a little bit more self-awareness and tuning in.
Oh, yeah. And, it's funny because it's simple, but it's not easy.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when you're in that do mode, because it's like, we want to, that's a part of the ignoring, right? We wrap ourselves up. Everything's a distraction.
And everything's top priority. Everything's so important.
Yeah. And I think about like what people did with their days 200 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's not a long time in terms of like evolutionary timeline. 200 years is the blink of an eye, right? Some people live to 100 now. That's 2 lifetimes.
Yeah.
Like 2 super old lifetimes. 200 years ago, they would have done a person, an entrepreneur, let's say you, Matthew, 200 years ago would have done probably 1/32 of what you do in a day.
All the stuff. Yeah.
In one day. And yet it's never enough. We're so insatiable. And I am totally looping myself into this because I have to balance the do. I'm hyper creative. I never stop. And so meditation is especially essential for me. And that's part of self-awareness, is understanding how you are, who you are, and what you are, how you function within those contexts, and allowing yourself health and stability and finding the tools that fit who you are.
Yeah.
And so for me, getting into meditation, which it's been a 2-year journey now for me, I started by going to a meditation center. So I do actually recommend you finding some kind of a Buddhist meditation center that does free intros to meditation. Here in Atlanta, there's the Kadampa Meditation Center.
Where is it?
There's one in Inman Park and one in Decatur. And I think there's even one in Sandy Springs. I think there's a few Kadampa meditation centers, and they're wonderful. Or you can go to like Inner Peace and Wellness Center also right off the Beltline in Atlanta. But there's places like that everywhere, in every city. And so you find one, they usually do free classes, or they'll do like a $10 group meditation class that is guided. And so you learn kind of the basics, and you can go back and if you like a sense of community, that's great. I like private meditation for the most part, or meditating with people that are kind of a part of my meditation circle or whatever. But then I learned to find solfeggio frequencies on YouTube for free. And so I was able to and solfeggio frequencies are frequencies that help to elicit certain feelings or like certain release within us that connect with our frequencies. Supposedly. I don't know the science behind it, but
cool.
it seems, it's believable.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, like all of this stuff, if something works for you and like,
exactly.
And if you feel empowered and encouraged and better by it, go for it.
Exactly. All I know is that when I put on a solfeggio frequency and I meditate, I go into a deep meditation.
That's cool.
And now I do, usually my meditation sessions I'll do at night, and they can last between 1 hour to 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I get deeply in there, and sometimes I'll set intentions. Sometimes I'll do like a releasing ritual, and sometimes I'll just be in this place where I'm like, all right, let's see whatever wants to come forward, let it come forward.
Yeah.
And, I'll tell you, like, real self-awareness, which I'm definitely building up to, can be overwhelming, because you're like, dang it, why can't I get over this thing? Like, and you got to be kind to yourself. That's the bottom line, is you got to be kind to yourself. And when you start to bring this real full circle, it's like when you start being truly kind to yourself, even in those moments of sadness, frustration, loneliness, resentment, jealousy, whatever, when you spot that negative feeling, be kind and just say, it's okay. You're human.
Yeah. Now
let's explore why you feel that way deeply. It was recently my birthday, and I felt really sad. on my birthday. And I've felt that feeling before. And in fact, I opened up to a few people and they said they'd felt those feelings before on their birthdays. And so rather than sink deeply into that feeling, I started asking myself why. And just like the question why. Like, why do you feel sad today, Michelle? I don't know, because like people don't care. Why do you feel like people don't care? I don't know. Well, it all leads back to your childhood usually. Feelings of abandonment, feelings of neglect, feelings of loneliness, sometimes that are just perceptions of our own as a child. And so that was a really important exercise. And that's a good example of how you can take one of those negative feelings, be kind to yourself, treat yourself like a child, right? Your inner child, cradle yourself and say, why do you feel sad today, Michelle?
Yeah, just explore it.
Yeah.
But, like you mentioned earlier, it takes courage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It takes a lot of guts to explore that stuff. And I'm happy you said be kind to yourself, because I think it's very, very easy when we are meditating, when we are bold enough to take a look at some of the things from our past, some of the disempowering beliefs or the inaccurate stories. When things come up, we can judge them, right? Especially if something sad comes up or something that makes us angry. We can judge that emotion that we're feeling. And that almost just like negates all of the work that you're doing. When a feeling comes up in a moment when you're creating the space for you to become more self-aware and practice those things, and whatever comes up, and you judge it, man, like I think that's a huge part of the kindness and the not being attached. Understanding that whatever's coming up, that was just the energy that was in there.
Yeah.
And because the judgment is it's you like pushing that back down.
Right.
You
tearing yourself apart about it.
Yeah, and so truly practice just being kind with whatever comes up, and understand that any sort of judgment, that's just more attachment.
Yes.
That's more attachment to that thing.
Yes.
If you're judging the sadness or the fact that you feel like you might cry, well, now you're forming that attachment and you're saying it's wrong to cry, and now those stories are just being reinforced, and it's that loop. So just give yourself a little bit of slack. Understand that it takes insane amount of courage and value of yourself to go on a journey of healing, of growth and transformation.
Yeah.
And instead of judging yourself for that stuff, give yourself a pat on the back and say, damn, I'm pretty freaking awesome for doing this.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? That kindness that you feel toward yourself ends up reflecting onto others.
Absolutely.
So you end up building more patience for others. You end up building more empathy, sympathy, kindness, care. And that brings us back to that mirror. When you are kind to yourself, one of my friends texted me on my birthday and was like, I'm just feeling down. I can't go to your celebration. I just can't make it. And the first thing I thought was, man, I've been there. Poor thing. No problem.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Be well. Let's get together next week. You become kind with others when you are good at being kind to yourself, because we're all one. We are all connected through our vibrations. It's like, it's again, that mirror. It's natural,
It is.
It's natural. So be kind, rewind.
Michelle, this has been awesome.
Yes, so much fun.
This has
so
been
much
cool.
fun. This is awesome. And I think I could talk about self-awareness and self-care till kingdom come, because it is such a important part of my life and an important part of my daily practice that I learn something new about it every day. And I love hearing how other people work through their own journeys and how they're doing with them. And just know that there are going to be really, really difficult times where you're like, am I ever going to come out of this?
Yeah.
Do the work and you will come out of it like a new incarnation. One last thing. I read this book by Deepak Chopra called The Book of Secrets, and it's not a self-help book. It is one of the hardest books I've ever read because it has some really mind-baffling ideas that are very existential and philosophical, and they definitely connect to quantum physics. And so one of the things Deepak talks about in the book is we talk about transformation all the time in terms of like a caterpillar turns into a butterfly and be like the butterfly and spread your wings and fly. But we always forget to talk about how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. And it has to literally build a cocoon around itself. And in a moment of solitude, melt down into a larvae state, which sounds super uncomfortable, in order to completely transform its exterior being into a completely different insect.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of work. And that takes solitude, it takes patience, it takes courage, and it takes being comfortable with discomfort to become a butterfly. So we cannot forget that that's part of that process.
Yeah, you can't discount it or ignore it.
Oh no.
And but it's so easy to do it. It's so easy to be like, you can transform how you're feeling and just go. Just go do it. Go do it. I think that folks who listen to this show have heard that, might believe that that simply by listening to this content, you can become transformed, or you could go to a seminar and become transformed. And but what we're saying is it takes a little bit more. It takes some intention. It takes stepping into that discomfort.
It takes all of your intention.
Yeah.
It is an extremely active exercise.
Yes.
That takes all of you at all times. And you know what? That's a blessing, because I think when you start waking up and when I started meditating, it was very soon after my divorce, and my divorce was super amicable, but it's still the death of a relationship, right? And there's mourning, and he was texting me on my birthday and we're on great terms, but it was still the death of something that it was a disappointment. And I also found myself coming out of the marriage completely unaware of who I was and completely stifled. I had really not honored myself during that whole time. And so I began my journey, and it has, thank God, it has gotten easier and easier and easier and easier over the past few years. But at that very beginning, I was so full of anxiety, and it was so difficult. I had to wake up every single day and push myself to do the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you have to have that kind of determination to become the butterfly and to fly. Alignment is the goal. And let me just make that clear. Money isn't the goal. Money is not the goal. Admiration from others is not the goal. A perfectly curated Instagram feed is never the goal. Alignment and true sense of self is the goal.
Yes, that's the internal versus external.
100%.
Yeah, you place the value, the importance, your self-worth, whatever on the external thing.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It's going up and down with the external.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus within yourself. And that's, again, simple concept, challenging, especially when we have years and decades of scripting and reinforcement of those ideas. And
exactly.
For the folks who are on their journey, you guys are awesome.
Awesome. You guys are heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously, because you have people who are watching you. They are watching you on your journey, and they are taking note, and they're saying, God, that person is so courageous.
Yeah.
I can't believe she had the guts to say that.
Exactly.
I can't believe he had the courage to step away. Wow, okay, maybe I can do it too.
Exactly.
And that's who you are for others, and
that's how you can have it all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Woo! High five on that one. Michelle, this has been fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for coming to my home. This is so cool. Like, this is the first time that I've had this type of setup going on and conversation.
So comfy. I love it.
Yeah, it's cool. And so I dig it. It's a little bit of a hike. I live a little bit outside of Atlanta, but
like I told you, it was nice to get out of the center of the city, and it's like greener and there's like birds chirping. I'm like, where are the trains?
Spider webs
I don't
everywhere.
understand.
So Michelle, where can people go if they want to connect with you? If they said, I love what you talk about, let's do coffee, or where can they do all that stuff?
So super easy. You can go to www.culturedpodcast.com. So that's culture with a D at the end, culturedpodcast.com. And then we're also on all the socials. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Cultured Podcast. Twitter is Cultured Pod, though. So take note. Connect with me. I am the direct person you're talking to when you comment on the website, on the episodes. We have some pretty extensive show notes. So every time you listen to an episode, and I make sure to include links to different things that are actionable, the bio of the person you just listened to, some cool pictures sometimes. In episode 1, I talk about Iceland, and I talk about this like cracked out pig logo. So I make sure to put that in the show notes because I am not exaggerating. So culturedpodcast.com.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'll put notes or links to all of your stuff in the show notes for this episode, which is over at firesidenetwork.com. That's where the Having It All podcast lives. And once again, Michelle, you rock. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.